Ever grab one of those perfectly seasoned steaks from the grocery store, ready to just toss on the grill?
You know the ones.
We're about to take you behind the scenes to meet the people who make those culinary shortcuts possible.
Meat preparations operators.
Exactly.
It's a profession most people don't think much about, but
They're the hidden heroes of convenience cooking.
that's a great way to put it.
And we're going deep on this one thanks to some awesome resources from RoleCatcher,
Oh, RoleCatcher is great.
a platform that really breaks down the nitty-gritty of different careers. So if you're curious about a career change, fascinated by the food industry, or just love learning something new,
This deep dive is for you.
absolutely. Let's get into it. What exactly does a meat preparations operator do all day? It's got to be more than just salt and pepper, right?
Way more. Think of them as flavor architects, but their medium is meat.
Okay, I like that.
We're talking beef, pork, chicken, lamb.
Oh.
They work with it all, turning raw cuts into ready-to-cook meals.
So when I see those pre-marinated chicken breasts with herbs and spices, that's a meat preparations operator's handiwork.
Exactly. They're the ones developing those flavor profiles, mixing the marinades, creating the rubs. It's an art form.
Okay, now that's making me hungry. But let's talk about where this meat magic happens. Is it all gleaming stainless steel in giant factories?
It can be. Some meat preparations operators work in large processing plants, but you'll also find them in smaller, family-run businesses, butcher shops, even high-end grocery stores.
Interesting. So a fair bit of variety in the work environment.
Definitely. And keep in mind, the actual working conditions can vary too. You might be in a temperature-controlled room for certain tasks, which can mean bundling up or working in hotter, more humid areas depending on what needs to get done.
Not your typical 9-to-5 office job then. So speaking of the job market, what's the outlook for aspiring meat preparations operators? Is this a stable career choice?
You'll be happy to know that the demand for skilled meat preparations operators is pretty stable. People love convenience, and that translates to a steady need for prepped and seasoned meats.
That's good to hear. But I imagine, like with any job, there are downsides too.
Of course. It's not all perfectly seared steaks and happy customers. Every job has its pros and cons. Let's start with the benefits. Besides the job security we just talked about, there's a real opportunity for growth in this profession.
Growth, you say? Tell me more about that. What's the career path look like for a meat preparations operator?
Well, you might start as an assistant, learning the ropes from seasoned professionals, literally.
I see what you did there.
You'd be mastering those essential knife skills, but also getting to grips with industrial-sized equipment.
Oh, wow. Like what kind of equipment are we talking about?
Imagine giant meat tumblers used to evenly distribute marinades, or powerful grinders that can process hundreds of pounds of meat per hour.
Wow, that's a whole other world compared to my kitchen. So you're saying there's a good blend of hands-on work and technical skills involved?
Absolutely. And as you gain experience, you could move into managing inventory.
Making sure everything's stocked.
Right, ensuring the right cuts are prepped and stored correctly, or even training new team members, passing on your expertise. And for those with a real knack for flavor, there's always the possibility of developing your own signature recipes.
Hold on, developing recipes. So there's a creative element to this too.
Yeah, it's more common than you might think. Remember those perfectly seasoned chicken wings we talked about? Someone had to dream up that blend of spices.
That's true.
And that someone could be you.
Now that you mention it, I have encountered some truly inspired flavor combinations in the prepared foods aisle. What would you say is the pinnacle for a meat preparations operator? Becoming like the head chef of the meat department.
You could say that. Imagine overseeing the entire meat preparation process, ensuring top-notch quality and flavor while also optimizing efficiency. You'd be like the conductor of a delicious orchestra, making sure every element of the process harmonizes perfectly.
Okay, that analogy really paints a picture. But let's be real, it can't all be recipe invention and conducting culinary symphonies. What about the challenges of the job? What should people be prepared for?
Well, as with many jobs in the food industry, it can be physically demanding. You're on your feet for long hours, often working in cold temperatures to maintain food safety standards. There can be repetitive tasks, and the environment can get noisy with all that equipment running. It's definitely not for the faint of heart.
You've got to be tough to handle those cuts of meat in the work environment. Anything else aspiring meat preparations operators should consider?
A strong stomach, and I mean that literally.
Oh, right, because you're working with...
You're working with raw meat all day, so a robust constitution and a thorough understanding of food safety are non-negotiable. We're talking about handling food that ends up on people's plates, so hygiene and safety are paramount.
That's a great point. It's a big responsibility to ensure the quality and safety of the food we eat, even when it comes to convenience items.
Mm.
So it sounds like you need to be able to handle the heat, or in this case, the cold, and have a strong stomach to make it in this field. But the rewards, like you said, could be pretty great.
Speaking of challenges, let's say someone is ready to apply for one of these meat-centric roles. What kind of interview questions should they be prepared for? Would it be all about spice blends and knife skills?
Well, RoleCatcher provided some insights into common interview questions.
Mm.
And let me tell you, they don't just want to hear about your favorite marinade recipe. Imagine this. You're in the hot seat and the interviewer asks, a batch of meat is undercooked. What do you do? How would you handle that curveball? Whoa, that's a pressure cooker of a question. I think my first instinct would be to try and save the batch if possible, but I'd also be worried about food safety.
Yeah,
It's a tough call.
that's exactly the point. They want to see you can think on your feet and prioritize safety.
Right, yeah.
Would you halt the production line, investigate the cause? It's all about problem solving and quick thinking.
Definitely makes you realize how much responsibility these folks have.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see those pre-marinated packages in a whole new light. But that brings us to something else worth chewing on. The food industry is constantly evolving, right? New technologies, shifting consumer preferences, even global events, they all impact what we see on our plates. Think about the rise of plant-based meat alternatives, for example.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge right now.
Do you think that could change the game for meat preparations operators?
It certainly adds another layer of complexity. It really does. Will they need to adapt their skills to work with these new products? Or will there always be a demand for traditionally prepared meats? It's a question worth pondering.
So even though this is a skilled trade with a lot of tradition behind it, there's still room for innovation and change.
Absolutely. This field is more dynamic than people realize. Those who thrive will be the ones who can adapt, learn new techniques, and stay ahead of the curve. Who knows? Maybe we'll see a surge in demand for meat preparations operators who specialize in crafting the perfect plant-based burger.
Now, that's a future I can get behind.
Yeah.
So to wrap up, we've learned that meat preparations operators are kind of the unsung heroes of the culinary world, blending artistry and precision to create those convenient and delicious meat products that many of us enjoy.
It's a profession with a promising outlook, but it's not without its challenges.
Right.
Long hours, physical demands, and a constant need to maintain the highest safety standards.
But for those with a passion for food, a knack for flavor, and the willingness to work hard, it could be an incredibly rewarding path. If you're intrigued by what you've heard today and want to learn more, RoleCatcher is a great resource for detailed job descriptions, interview tips, and more.
It's a fantastic starting point for exploring whether this career path is the right fit for you.
And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of meat preparations operators. Thanks for joining us.